Welcome all. Today we are going to see about lifecycle hooks in Angular. Okay. Before jumping into lifecycle hooks, I would like you to understand what is at input and content projection through ng content. Okay. To illustrate the lifecycle hooks, basically I have already a running application. Okay, which basically has a parent and a child. If you go inside the application, this is my application, whatever you see. If you see it in the browser, you will have basically a parent and a child. From the parent, basically I am sending a name. Okay, that name I am trying to display it in the child, and the child also has a footer. This employee footer is being injected from the parent. So in just a bit I will tell you, explain you. Through this I will try to first explain you at input and content projection. Then we will try to understand lifecycle hooks in Angular. Okay. If you go inside the application, okay, this is my parent. Okay. What you uh, what you see here, this is the parent. Okay. Inside the parent you have the child. This is basically the child. Maybe if you want I can also make it a different color. So this red one is the child and the green one is the parent. Okay. So here in my code the employee list is the parent and the employee is the content which is responsible for that red border, and employee list is responsible for that green border. Okay. So to explain at first what is at input. At input is used for sending a data from the parent to a child. In this case, if you see, I have an input ng model with employee name, and I am passing this employee name content into the parent child, which is the app employee. App employee is the child. If you go inside employee component.ts, you will see the selector as app employee. So this is the child for me. To the child, I am passing some content. That is the employee name. Okay, that employee name is sent as content. The employee name here is sent from the parent to the child. Okay, so if you see here the employee name through the at input. Okay, if you basically see employee component will have at input. So we need to put what will be an input from the parent to the child through by specifying at input. Okay, here we have specified that I will be inputting employee. So this, if you see it in the parent, you will see a employee. So whatever you specified in the input there, you specify here, and we are passing from the parent the employee name. So in this case, the employee, the child will be receiving the employee name. Okay, through the at input, through the what you have. This employee will be receiving the employee name basically. Okay. This is like I'm just giving a hint on input. If you want to learn about at input and output completely, you can refer to. I would be adding that link in this video itself, where you can refer more on that. This is about at input and content projection. What is content projection? If you see, if in the case, okay, from the parent, okay, uh, in this case from the parent, okay, whatever you specify it inside that app employee is the selector of the child. Okay, inside app employee whatever I mention, I want to make it available in the child. In this case, okay, whatever I mentioned here, Actually I'm projecting this content, and this content will be available in my child through ngContent. Okay, if you see in that, whatever I put inside the braces of the child, that will be available here in ngContent. This is content projection from the parent to the child. Okay, let me explain it again. Okay, whatever I am putting inside the selector of the child will be available inside the child through ngContent. So in this case, app footer is another component. I'm injecting this component and making it available in the child through the ngContent. So in this case, the employee footer, right? This content is available in the employee HTML, through the ngContent. So that's why you are able to see the employee footer here because of ngContent. I have projected content, that is the employee footer content, from the employee list parent to the child. So this is basically called as content projection. Okay. So let us jump into lifecycle hooks now. Uh, so these are the lifecycle hooks, that is ngOnChanges, ngOnInit, ngDoCheck, ngAfterContentInit, ngAfterContentCheck, and ViewCheck, and ng. The So ngOnChanges, if you see, is the first in the lifecycle method. So this will be called by Angular. ngOnChanges will be called whenever the content, whenever the input property changes. Whenever the input property changes, it will be called. So in our case, the input property is employee name. If you see here, I am trying to insert the employee name into the employee component through the at input, employee at input. So whenever this employee name changes, this ngOnChanges will be called, and this will be the first lifecycle hook. You need to understand. So whenever I will just inspect, I have also a console log for ngChanges on every lifecycle hook, so that you understand better. I have put it in both parent and child so that I can illustrate it better. So what I have done is, in my TS file I have tried to print everything. Okay, parent I have mentioned it as parent ng do check. I have actually all the lifecycle hook I have tried to console log. In the parent, it will have a prefix of parent there, and in child also I have tried to print everything. You see here, but this will not have the prefix of parent. So you can understand it is being called from the child. Okay, let me go inside. So whenever the user types anything, right? Let me have a console log. Even before trying to enter anything, any on changes is changed. You are able to see this. Let me now try to type something there. When you try to type something, the ng on in changes will be getting called. Let me go there. So here you are able to see ngOnChanges, which is available in the child because it does not have a prefix. Okay, it is getting called, and this ngOnChanges will be receiving employee object. Employee is the at input here in this case. That's why we are getting employee, and it will have in the change value. Okay, because whenever the user types f d something, for f there will be one on ngOnChange. F d, there will be another on changes. Okay, it will say the current value and the previous value. So when it was empty, it was undefined, and then f came. After that there will be another ng on changes. If you try to filter it, you will see it more So this is all the ngOnChanges. So for fd, and for each letter the user type, there is one ngOnChanges which is getting called with the changed value of at input. Here in the case, the output at input is the employee name, which is inserted from the parent to the child. Okay, this is about the first lifecycle hook, ngOnChanges. And ngOnInit, if you see, it is a general method. It is most of one of the common method we use in our component. This lifecycle hook will be called by Angular when it is trying to initialize the component. So in the ngOnInit, you can basically put all the initialization you need for the component. Like you want to retrieve from the database and update certain instance variables or models, you can use ngOnInit. This is generally for, this will be called when the Angular is trying to initialize your component. And ngDoCheck, this method if you take, will be called whenever the Angular feels some change, that is for every digest cycle which is run. The digest cycle will be basically run when the Angular thinks the model needs to be updated because there is a change in the component class. Some instance has changed, so it wants to update the model. This digest cycle will be triggered by Angular when any asynchronous calls goes, or when ngClick is called, when some button is called. So it feels that some change is possible. Normally, we will put changes in ngDoCheck for all the cases where we think this change the Angular will not be able to detect. Okay, maybe some button you have not used ngClick for that. You have not updated even binding for that. So there is no way Angular will find out that whenever this button is run, the digest cycle should be called. So in that cases where Angular doesn't know that this needs to be updated, like as I told, a button where you have not put any binding, even binding, so there will be no way that Angular will start the digest cycle. In those cases, you can use ngDoCheck. ngAfterContentInit will be called uh, once the external content is injected through ngContent. So in our case, ngAfterContentInit will be called when the parent, that is the employee list component, this parent injects this content into the employee class, that is the child component. Whenever it tries to inject the content, whenever it tries to project the content inside the child component, that is the employee component, through ngContent, this will be getting called. This ngAfterContentInit will be getting called. And this is the first method where you can access the content which is got injected by the parent to the child. This is the only method, the first method, where the content will be available. The content which is injected by the parent to the child through ngContent will be available. So only in this method you can try to use, you can use to access the content to through at content child. So I will let you know. So this is my child component. So through at content child, I can try to access the content, because basically what we have done is in employee list component, if you see, this is my HTML. So I have tried to inject a component. Inside the component, I have put employee footer. Okay. This component basically is having only ngContent. Is having only ngContent. So I am trying to inject, project this content from the parent to the child. and in the employee component, okay, and I can say the name of the footer component. This is the name of the footer component which I try to project. Okay, if you see here, footer component is the name of the footer component which I try to project from the parent to the child, and I am saying that what type of at content child. I mentioned that I have injected a half footer content with content which is a half footer content. So only in this method I can access this content. Only from this method that content will be available. Since the Angular calls this method after it has injected the projected the content into the child. So this content you can see it in ngAfterContentInit. If I try to do it, you will see the content. Let me refresh it. Actually, I'm having a filter. I will remove that so that you see all that. So if you see here, ng after. So are you able to see the app footer content which is injected? Basically, which is getting injected. So this is the first lifecycle hook where you can access the content which was projected by the parent to the child. Okay, this is a type of app footer content because I have tried to inject this component through content projection from the parent to the child. So we have mentioned in content child, it is of type app footer component. Okay, let me go to the slide. Okay, after this, once this is done, okay, this the yellow color, whatever mentioned, whatever things you are seeing in yellow color, it is all called only once in the life cycle of a component. Okay, after this is injected, the content is available. The Angular will try to check whether something has changed, some value has changed, whether the some model have to be updated in the content. So for that it will do a ngAfterContentCheck. So that only after this, if you have anything, any binding available in the content, that will be updated. So it will check whether any updation needs to be done in the content, in the any binding available in your content. After this, ngAfterViewInit is called. ngAfterViewInit is called when the once the complete view is available. Okay, when the complete view is available, that is ngAfterViewInit will be called the parent when the complete view is available for the parent, and ngAfterViewInit will be called when the complete view is available for the child. Okay, complete view, that is I am saying that this is where the user will be able to see the complete view. View is the what you see it here. Okay, this is what I called as view. Once the user sees the complete view, this lifecycle hook will be called, and this is the lifecycle hook where you can access the view, complete view. As an example, if you see in the employee component.ts, I would have mentioned in employee component.html, I have mentioned at wrapper in the view of the child. Okay, dollar wrapper, and in the employee component.ts, I can access this wrapper. Okay, the wrapper is nothing but for the complete view. I have mentioned a reference as wrapper. Okay, for the complete view of the child, I have mentioned for accessing, for referring to this view, I have added hash wrapper, and that reference I'm making use in the TS file using at view child wrapper, okay, which is of type element ref. Okay, it will basically give the complete HTML of that view. Okay, thus that can be accessed only in ngAfterViewInit, because this is where the complete view is available. Okay, after this, yeah, after this, okay, this also will be called only once in the life cycle of a component. After this, it will check for the complete view whether any change needs to be done, any model needs to be updated in the view. So Angular will this lifecycle hook will be called after check is done for the complete view, whether any model, any bindings need to be updated in the view. After that, this will be called, and after that, ngOnDestroy will be called. ngOnDestroy, you are actually aware. So so it will be called before the component is destroyed, so that in ngOnDestroy you can do any cleanup activities, like you can close the database which you have opened or something like that, or unsubscribe for the observables, maybe another example. So now let us try to understand the life cycle hoods with an example. Okay, so right now I'm loading the employee list, and as I mentioned, I have put the console logs for every lifecycle hook in both the parent, that is the employee list, and the child, which is the another employee list. Both the parent and child, I have put the lifecycle hooks in the parent. I have added the prefix like parent, but in the child I have not added that. So in this way we will try to understand. Okay, so let us, before seeing the console log, the child view. Okay, child HTML, if you go and see, child HTML also has the view, also consists of the view of the child. So this view will be initialized, that is the parent view will be initialized only after child view is done, and the after view, after after view check is done, only this parent view will be loaded. Okay, if you go to the PPT, so this ngAfterViewCheck after view unit of the parent will be loaded, because the view of the parent consists of the view of the child as well. So the ngAfterViewInit will be loaded only after its complete view is loaded. So this parent view ngAfterViewInit will be loaded only after child, that is the employee components, is completely done. That is the complete life cycle is done of the child. That is from ngOnInit to ngAfterViewCheck of the child is done. Then only ngAfterViewInit of the parent will be called. This you can see it in the example. Now let us go to the file. I will just do a console log. If you do a console log, you will understand. So first parent ngOnInit, then parent ngDoCheck, after that ContentInit. After it projects the content, this after content init is called, after content checked is called. So once it projects the content to the child, then the child's life cycle starts. The employee component's life cycle starts. Okay, it will move through ngOnChanges, ngOnChanges, that is change because the input, that is the employee name, is changed. So it will start with the ngOnChanges, then it will move on to ngDoCheck, and then the content after after content init will be called. The content will be available and the content will be checked by the Angular. Then we have ngAfterViewInit of the child, and we have view check. After view unit is nothing but complete view of the child is ready. After that, this will be called, and then Angular does the checks whether model needs to be updated for that view. After that, ngAfterViewCheck is called. Only after this, notice carefully, only after this, the parents after view unit is completed. Okay, once the child's view is completed, only ngAfterViewInit of the parent is called, and parent check after view check is called. Once it is completed, you will see ngDoCheck, all the check happening whenever I will just clear it off. So nothing will be called. But when the Angular thinks the some changes possible, it needs to update the model. That is when I type something here. So I'm doing something in the ng model, I'm changing. So it will kickstart the ng. If you see here, ngDoCheck, the digest cycle will started by Angular because some change has been done by the user, and then it will do after content checked, and then once it is done, the ngOnChanges of the child is called. Okay, and then doCheck is called. doCheck, that is the child's digest cycle is called. After that, ngAfterContentCheck is called. After view check it is called, then again all the check mechanism happens. So you have to understand, uh, the whatever I said in yellow is all once. After that, the check will happen only when the Angular thinks some change is possible. Then it will start with the parent, go to the child, and it will again end with the parent. So ngDoCheck of the parent will get called. It will be followed up with ngAfterContentCheck. Okay, and then it will again go back to the child's ngDoCheck, and then ngAfterContentCheck. After that, ngViewCheck, and then it will end with ngAfterViewCheck of the parent, as you see here. Okay. So once the do check starts, it actually travels through uh, the content. It will check whether any change is possible in the any change has been done in the content, and then view, and then parents view. Starts with parents do check, and after content check of the parent, then moves to ng do check of the child, and then content check of the child, view check of the child, and ends with parent view check. Parents view check. Okay. And at last, if you want to see about ngOnDestroy, if you destroy the component, it will be called. Maybe if I have something here, I can add a button here. I will add something like this: ngIf the employee name not equal to delete. So this component will be deleted if the employee name is delete. Okay. If you type delete here, this component is supposed to be deleted because I have used ngIf. So let us check whether ngDestroy is getting called in this case. So it is this component we are able to see because the employee name is not equal to delete. Let us see that now. So once you type delete, that component should be destroyed. So our ngOnDestroy should be called. Let me check. So are you able to see there? ngOnDestroy is called once the before the component is getting destroyed. Okay. Hope the lifecycle hooks are clear to you. Thank you guys. Don't forget to subscribe.